Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a big pleasure for us to be here. We're going to be talking about blockchain technology, one of the hottest, one of the most controversial, one of the most disruptive sense of how do people understand what is going to be the future of civilization, what is going to be the future of national security, but also what is going to be the future of us entrepreneurs, startups, and businessmen that wants to build something, that wants to code, invest, and work into developing the new solutions that would be affecting the internet overall. So my name is Julio Alejandro. I'm from Mexico originally, and I am the global ambassador of one of the largest blockchain corporations, one of the largest blockchain startups based in Liechtenstein, where we create one of the most important features of blockchains, which is smart contracts. So let's position ourselves and let's go back 20 years ago to trying to understand what is blockchain. Let's go 20 years ago and somebody would tell you that they have a new technology called the internet. But you would have to question yourself, what is exactly the internet 20 years ago? It's something that allows you to create emails, but what's an email? It is something that allows you to create browsers like Yahoo or like Google, but 20 years ago or 30 years ago, you wouldn't be able to understand it. And it's something that would allow you to create social media, like Facebook, like Twitter, like Snapchat, or even like Tinder. But 20 or 30 years ago, this technology and this idea that is called the internet would expand into multiple decentralized organic forms of growth that affected all human existence. So let's try to understand what are the main features that blockchain companies and blockchain protocols, this hardcore technology, this infrastructure, these ledgers and algorithms and cybersecurity encryption provides so you can understand 5 years from now or 10 years from now what could be some of the startups and some of the new companies, some of the new Ubers, some of the new sharing economies, some of the new financial technologies or fintechs that would be used on top of blockchain. Blockchain being the new internet, the new form that would allow all of the other systems, from artificial intelligence to machine learning, driverless cars, mixed reality, like the headsets in terms of virtual reality, but also augmented reality. All of the convergence of disruptive technologies to be built on top of one of our platforms that is being based on an open source model, free, public, accessible for all, that is based on blockchain technologies. So try imagining how can you have different kind of Airbnb. Position yourself within the current status. You go to a house, you rent it, but it is not personalized. There is not interconnectivity. What smart contracts would allow you to create, it's hundreds of thousands of microtransactions per second, micro and nano agreements per second, so they would deliver you the experience of staying in an Airbnb according to your own needs, according to your own background, that you could be interested in Islamic architecture or like Arab architecture. So you would allow and send information to driverless cars saying, please provide to Alejandro the features and the walls so he actually have in his Airbnb that Mexican or Chinese architecture that you want to have with it. It would also allow you to predict with artificial intelligence and neural patterns how and what time do you usually come back, and if you would like to order, say, some food or some drinks. So if you usually come on the Airbnb at 9 p.m., it's very likely that you would need to have some food. So according to your budget and according to the digital identity, the wallet, the resources that you have, you could actually send information to the multiple establishments and food corners that are across within your area to tell them that they should be prepared for you to serve you in case you would need it. And that creates a lot of integration within small communities. It would also tell if a group of, let's say, soccer players that come from Liverpool to London to play, and they're staying in one neighborhood, that there's going to be hundreds of people or thousands of people in that region, and on that Monday, it is very likely that that bar would need to have more employees, more alcohol, and more integration within all of the chains of the supply chain management. So people would arrive, would come within our business knowing that there's 1,000 football fan clubs from Liverpool Club coming into this neighborhood in London. All of those kind of super, very small, tiny nano agreements, nano contracts, nano transactions, they cannot be done because we haven't reached a certain level of speed and of velocity until we reach the speed of light. That kind of integration and synchronization between your individual needs, your desires, your futures, your individuality, the lifestyle and the choices that you decide to take cannot be met because we don't have a global system of communication. An eternity, as by being a global, decentralized, distributed network like the internet, would allow you to integrate all of those processes that are spread according to multiple geographies, multiple times, multiple businesses, and multiple desires. And everything under the same sphere could be done if we use this blockchain, eternity blockchain, smart contracts. Another good example of understanding some of the features of blockchain is if we understand blockchain and eternity blockchain as Apple. Apple as one operating system that does not only provides laptops, does not only provides smartphones, and does not only provides iPod and the music services that it creates, but one company or one operating system migrated into multiple dozens of different organizations and different systems where you would be able to create different systems for people. Similar to Amazon. Similar how Amazon started simply delivering services and goods in terms of supply chain management, and then it evolved to create Amazon Fresh in terms of groceries, Amazon Web Services as a cloud system, and Amazon Audible to listen to audio books. So these new markets that are arising on top of blockchain economy have not arrived yet. We're still in the area of preparation. It's one of the biggest concerns and one of the biggest questions that people ask us. Can you show us some examples? Can you give us like some detailed explanation? Not this philosophical and theoretical things, but how is it actually affecting my life? How is it impacting other people's lives? And at the moment, everything is in what we call the testnet. They're still developing, they're still creating it. But us in eternity, in very few months, say by July, say by August, we would release and we would become one of these public global networks where all this big data, all of this information that is hard or impossible to centralize or to digest, this raw data becomes valuable intelligence. Valuable intelligence for your businesses, but also valuable intelligence for your governments or for your organizations. How you use that information, it would be synchronized. And it is the problem, or one of the problems, that blockchain solves. Another problem that exists within the internet, and you would say, we already have an internet, why do we need another kind of internet if we already have one? What is the biggest problem? The biggest problem is centralization. In centralization, every company owns your data. Google owns your data. Facebook owns your data. Twitter owns your data. Tinder owns your data. If you want to migrate to another one, you cannot trespass or migrate the likes, the photos, the messages, the pictures, everything from Facebook to another company, to another organization that provides a similar service. This is the concentration of what we call, in network theory, centralization. Blockchain provides decentralization, by creating digital identities where you keep your own data, where you maintain the information that exists, and you take it from Facebook and then you put it into whatever other company or startups that is providing a similar solution or a similar service provider. And something that exists as well is that the transactions and everything can be validated or censored by that organization itself, by the government, by Facebook, by the Russian government, or by North Korean government, Saudi Arabia government. If they don't agree with allowing a contract, a financial contract between two businesses or two parties, they can cancel it. With blockchain, by being immutable, transnational, and borderless, all those contracts will not only exist, but we would use another system of governance and to reach a consensus by ourselves validating the transactions. Not the government validating the transactions, not a private enterprise validating, but hundreds of thousands of people using an open source model in what we call consensus algorithms. Many of you have heard, or some of you might have heard, what is proof of work, what is proof of stake, delegated proof of stake, hash graphs, directed acyclical graphs, Tangle, many ways how we determine what is the truth. One of the examples would be within money. Let's say that someone sends 100 pounds from you in here, to this other person in here. Instead of having one single person to validate the transaction, would be, or like Facebook or Google saying, yes, this is the historical truth, or HSBC and Bank of America validating, saying, yes, this transaction happened upon this period of time. Everyone in this room and everyone across the rooms across the world would be validating if this actually happened or not. And by that, we would be using a combination of exchanging electricity with proof of work, so people would have to use their CPU. Imagine if you would be taking a photo and that photo takes some electricity to validate that something happened in some period of time. Within proof of stake, you would have to vote with your digital coins. Within decentralized proof of stake, you would elect one representative, the most honorable person in this room, Andrik, to validate in behalf of everyone from GLOBSEC. Or within Tangle mechanism from IOTA, you would have to make a computational mathematic. So how much is 5 plus 5? 10. How much is 5 plus 7? 12. What did you say? 10 and 12. You validated a transaction. We allow you to continue with those transactions in the virtual machines. So those transactions are the new governance mechanisms, how people create trust, how people create money, how people create contracts on a system that is not physical, but is automated and validated by algorithms, by mathematics. You stop trusting humans with our biases, with our errors, with our mistakes, our natural corruption, to start trusting a system based on algorithms that are neutral, that are immutable, that cannot be changed, and cannot have a mistake. Mathematics do not commit mistakes. We as humans do commit these systems of mistakes. And another important part related to the we're in GLOBSEC, Global Security Organization conference, and also think tank, very good one, by the way. It's how do you protect yourself electronically against attacks? And with Eternity Blockchain, what we create is a state channel. A state channel, it means to have any kind of transaction, any kind of agreement or contract, any kind of communication that we have between ourselves would be within a private network. And that private network would allow you to create what is the provenance, meaning if someone tries to attack it, to infiltrate it, to modify it, to change it in any kind of form, we can see exactly when and likely from where, at which kind of point and period of time did it happen, would that attack happen against the network that we use. And as a third important part of what is blockchain and eternity blockchain projects is the use of oracles. Yes, like the Greek oracles. It is a way to predict the future, to anticipate the future. It's a crowdsourcing way to ask not our individual's capacity, not our individual knowledge, but ask everyone in the room if they can predict the future. And what oracles provides is, in simple words, if you can say yes or no, something happened. Or yes or no, would you buy this or not? It works in marketing, but it also works to anticipate the future reality. So, would you buy this phone for £1,000? You have to say yes or no, true or false, binary. You could also give multiple choices. Would you buy this phone for £500, £600, 700, 8, 900 pounds? For how much do you think that the market value of this phone would be? And also you can create multiple ranges. How much do you think that people in Slovakia would pay for a phone? Because people from Slovakia have different characteristics that people from China or people from Nigeria and from the economic zones in London or in different parts of the world. So how much would the people from this room pay in favor of having a phone like this? And this is the consensus algorithms that allows to create and to anticipate, have a very clear and better prepared assumption of how would reality look like in the future. It integrates real life data. It integrates what is exactly happening outside, saying it is very likely that it would be raining, meaning bring more Ubers into this area because people don't want to walk. People would be needing a Uber. There has been a delay within the airplanes in the airports, meaning please bring more people to aid as blood cells into this area, or tell us who won the elections, who won within the football matches, who won within any legislation that happened at the moment. And that information would be decentralized, solving the problems that the business and the organizations around it need to create better customer services for their organizations. And as a last part that I want to mention is what are some of the characteristics that brings blockchain into mainstream? And one of the biggest one is that there is unlimited free market decentralized competition. When we mention competition, is that within the current model, it is very difficult to be an entrepreneur. It is very time-consuming to look into the laws, the regulations, everything that involves decentralization of knowledge and decentralization of the laws. With blockchain, what it has done is that it's created entrepreneurship across the developing world, so people build different applications on top of this new internet, and by building these applications, they become wealthy by providing better products, better services, better information. There are different ways how you can participate in blockchain. One of the most visible one is joining an ambassador program. An ambassador program, it delivers you kits of information so people like you can see exactly why would I need to use under my circumstances, under my nation, and under my budget, this kind of information. It creates experts. And those experts, they build businesses. Those experts, they consult, they design, they develop, they create different things. And one of the beauties about blockchain is that it creates different systems of organizations, what we call digital cities. Meaning there's hundreds of people or hundreds of thousands of people or thousands of people that they want to come, and they come with us asking, how can we help you to make blockchain a better for the world? How can we adopt mass adoption? Because in 5 years from now, every single system, everything that you have done within the internet would migrate to blockchain. It does not affect business, it affects hierarchy. And everything that involves hierarchy, as the centralized nation state, the centralized laws and constitution, the centralized markets that we have, but also the central banks in terms of Bitcoin. Everything that involves centralization, blockchain is affecting it by becoming decentralized. And the physical side of it, it's on the creation of digital cities, of councils, of elections, of having representatives, of having people that they have tasks to create the blockchains, where many times we don't have money, we don't pay them, we don't go out for them. They come with us saying, we want to build an application on your blockchain because this is the future. I cannot understand it. You sound very smart, but I cannot understand how am I going to create something better? How is it going to affect the farmer in Africa? How is it going to affect the violence in Mexico? How is it affecting the Syrian refugees that are coming in here? Such a buzzword, such a lot of information, but I cannot get a hold of it. So within ambassador programs and the one that we have in Eternity, we teach those people how to become experts. And those people, they first create and make better the technology. They have tasks themselves, but they also have a system of governance. And that system of governance dictates what is the ethical, the moral, the social codes, guidelines that we have to do to become an ethical enterprise. Not because government tells us so, not because the regulators, which 99% of the time they don't understand this technology, tells us so, but because our community tells us that there is a problem where blockchain is being misused and they want to fix it. You're giving trust to the people, not to the government, not to the European Union, not to United Nations, and not to centralized authorities, but people who voluntarily and rationally want to build a community with us. And as a last part of this presentation, I want to mention that this is the creation of new institutions. What Eternity really represents, and with blockchain and these disruptive technologies we really represent, is a creation of new models of human and social organizations that do not exist at the moment, and they cannot be foreseen, they cannot be planned, they cannot be designed. They need to be left alone to spontaneously, automatically grow into solve the world's problems, society's problems, and the current situations that every individual has. Think about blockchain, about what did it do, what did fire do to agriculture, what did automobile did to transportation, or what did the internet do to communication. The most important technology from all of the disruptive ones that exist, the one that gets more attention, is blockchain. Over artificial intelligence, over Internet of Things, over driverless cars, etc. It is very difficult to grasp, to understand it, because it cannot be designed. It cannot be pre-cooked, pre-planned. It cannot be anticipated how and which kind of organizations would affect governments, would affect national security, would affect the legislative bodies. How and what is the real impact that it's going to be is if you understand it and go back 20 years ago and see that it is possible that the internet would revolutionize everything. And if you would have to go those 20 years ago, you cannot understand, and you might call them, it's a technology that is not, I cannot understand it, so the internet will not be used by anyone. The internet would just be a database. The internet solves some problems, but not all problems. Well, the internet is something interesting, but I'm just too old, and those programming languages, those cybersecurity, it's too difficult for me to understand, and I just need to see the end result of this project. People who get involved into blockchain, they need from day one to understand the technical side of it. They need to understand what is the consensus algorithms that motivates it, and what are the token economics, which understanding Friedrich Hayek, understanding Friedman, understanding especially the Austrian School of Economics, it is among the best of what people recommend for using this. It is an open source model. It is voluntary. If you want to trust, meaning all of the trust are created by everyone in this room. When regulations would come, we would try to help and to tell them that we have already been regulated. The industry regulated themselves. It is very dangerous and ignorant to suggest that there is no governance systems within a decentralized technology. All of the transactions are validated by 5 constituencies. You have the developers, the miners, the wallets, the exchanges, and the merchants. Hundreds of thousands included in each one of these 5 categories. Each one do not trusting each other, do not knowing each other, never having communicating each other. But by this system, it encourages, it incentivizes collaboration, cooperation, and truth instead of mistrust and negative uses of its applications. There are very few cases of blockchain at the moment. As within the internet, there were very few cases 40 years ago or 30 years ago. So with Eternity, we're looking for people that want to understand this technology, to use this technology, and to be the real revolutionaries, the real innovators, the real startups, the people who build, who code, who design, who transact, who invest into the new forms of internet that would decentralize everything. Decentralize because it has already been approved, authorized, vetted, and validated by humanity, not by a central thing, not by a central bank or by a central nation state. So for those that are interested in learning about blockchain and seeing how could it help you solve your individual problem. Your individual problem might be entrepreneurship, or might be youth unemployment, or might be radicalization by some people from different religions and different backgrounds. The best solution to stop those kind of radicalization, it's bring them into entrepreneurship. It's to bring them into the financial system, include them into the financial system, that those kind of organisms and laws, which were very honest and well created, anti-money laundering, know your customer, those terrorism laws, they were perfect when they could serve a purpose. Within these decentralized technologies, they would have to change. They would have to mutate. They would have to be different. And just as a final remark, as a final way just to take questions and comments from the audience, is understand that this is a foundational technology. It's not a disruptive technology or a revolutionary technology. Everything that you can create from scratch, this is the layer, the infrastructure, the architecture, as if you would see it within a pyramid, that is very strong and would allow you to create things on a spontaneous and decentralized ways that would affect everything in human existence. For that, I thank you very much. My name is Julio Alejandro, and I am the Global Ambassador of Eternity Blockchain. Thank you very much. So we could take some questions from the audience, probably. The most disruptive technology is blockchain. I just said that it's not disruptive.
Thank you for your enthusiastic speech. I'm very glad to hear this. I'm just wondering, why do we have still bitcoins and cryptocurrencies and not all these perfect things which you are talking about? What is the reason why we still do not have such services? And maybe the second question, where is the weak point? You said that internet has weak point at centralization.
Big point?
Weak
point.
So what is the weak point of the blockchain?
Scalability. So we don't have enough internally, we don't have enough resources for the amount of people that wants to come and speak with us and work with us and solve problem with us. That is the biggest problem that most or of all of the blockchain companies have. Meaning after this, I'm giving another 7 talks in 7 countries in 15 days. Then we have to organize all the inputs of the hundreds of people that are not only our fans, but they want to consult to create things on top of us, we don't have a real logical way to organize them, to put them together and give them tasks. We're growing so large and so much and so fast that it's hard to keep up. And in contrast, we're growing really fast. The governments across every jurisdictions, they're very slow on reacting. And their regulations are really killing businesses, or killing dreams, or killing entrepreneurship. They need to be lighter. They need to be faster. So these beautiful things that I say can actually be implemented rather than being theoretical.
How to avoid natural bias coming from the fact that the people who are now working on it are relatively well educated. Of course, there are people from the global south, but they remain relatively a minority compared to people from the north. I don't know the gender distribution. So how to avoid starting with such a bias of no representation of large segments of the population for a technology that aims to be the most decentralized one, but starting at the foundation with a very strong bias? How to avoid this and overcome the problem?
So technologies overall are created in a centralized way. That's why Ethereum is so centralized, should be 80 or even 90% of the markets. From small startups across the world, they try to identify that 1% where the monopoly has not been the best. And us, and personally me, I don't like to describe myself according to a nationality or ethnicity, but we put a lot of emphasis that the poor people in developing countries, they're the first. This is not and should not be a technology just for banks. And I hope I didn't even use the word banking. This is for poor people, for oppressed people, for immigrants, for refugees, for Syrians. And I would always help them and validate them over someone who lives in England. I live in London, and I lived in Paris, and I lived in Chicago, and in Mexico City, and whatever. And I invested in Bitcoin many years ago. But many of the people didn't have these opportunities. So Argentina is one of the countries, if not there was a study by Cambridge University that said that the penetration of Bitcoin in Argentina was the largest. Why the largest? Because politicians making decisions about their economy, creating inflation, creating more quantitative easing, and not having money as a medium of exchange, as a reliable unit of account, because if the money goes up and down, and as a store of value, because I cannot withdraw it from the banks. So I have $5 million in the banks, and the Indian government, the Argentinian government, or the Greek government here in Europe stops you from withdrawing that money. And it only allows you to take away 50 euros per day. That's what happens in Greece. In Bitcoin and in decentralized technologies, you own the money. You own the data, not whoever have an idea of how much of that money should be yours or how much should you control that technology upon certain characteristics. But by being decentralized, it eliminates the single point of failure. It eliminates any other person that is not involved and participant in the network from modifying its transactions. So should it be used for developing countries? I would imagine that for people that are being oppressed in political countries, and the second and for poor people overall.
Hi, I'm Lucas from Poland. Thank you for the inspiring lecture. I have a question concerning the defense. Do you know any defense application except unclassified cryptology probably? Have you heard about the defense application, about the blockchain, how we can use it?
No.
Good.
With a distributed ledger, you mentioned proof of work. And then what are the environmental effects if we use mining as proof of work? I mean, a number of people are concerned about that. And if we use proof of stake, don't we have to trust the developer? How do we know he hasn't slipped a few extra coins in or would? In other words, corruption, why couldn't a system be corrupted? So have you really gotten rid of trust?
No. So it depends not on the number of nodes, but on the numbers of angles and vertices. And us in Eternity, we're a hybrid. So we use the Cuckoo cycle, which is a combination between proof of work in the consensus algorithm and proof of stake on the governance. So for this, you use mining. For deciding the decisions, you use this other one. So there's multiple ways, and it's one of the concerns of the expenditure of electricity. On reality, if you understand, you cannot plan, anticipate, design. You need, and people who are trying to create decentralized planning or designing, they're usually going to be wrong. So let every blockchain create a solution, and the one that is more environmentally friendly, people would choose it. The users would choose it. So allow people entrepreneurship. Make it quicker and faster for them to solve this electricity and energy consumption project. Thank you. Just as a last thing, there's the buses running at 7:45 for the cocktail party. I'm going to be there. I'll be really happy to get more than one drink with every one of you. Well, I'm not promise how am I going to end up tonight, but as a startup, I think I'm allowed to say so. So yeah, let's go for the cocktails. Let's answer all the questions. I'm super happy to talk, to communicate, to share some ideas. And on behalf of Eternity Blockchain, I want to thank everyone in here. Thank you very much again.